Good morning. The first thing we have to do is get our outlines ready to actually move over into a Google Doc. We want to do that so that you don't have to cut and paste all the quotes individually, but can do that as a whole. So the first thing you have to do is just erase any of those notes that you might still have made to yourself, because otherwise it's going to be harder to find those in a minute because they're not going to be in color. So if you look, I've removed all of my notes within, I'm not worried about the intro and conclusion, but within the body I've removed them all. So now I need to highlight, and I'm going to copy it, and then I'm putting this into a new document. Now when I go to paste, and this is really important, when you go to paste you have to hit the paste without formatting, because if you leave the formatting on, it leaves you that whole chart then that you have to deal with. So now of course you're going to have to get in here and say, oh wait, those are my topic sentences, and those that's my evidence, and get that all set so that you can start to work using the colors from the Power Paragraph. So when it's all done, it should look like this. So you can see I have my introduction, and I have my topic sentences, and I have my evidence, and that from that I'll be able to actually build my body paragraph. So I'm going to stop there for just a second and let you get a chance to get everything formatted onto a new document. The next step in the process is to take all those notes that you've gathered for your introduction and to just turn it into a simple basic introduction that's telling your title, your author, the basic conflict, often will include the setting, the theme of course, and then your thesis statement, which is how the answer to the question, how does the author develop the theme. So Freedom Summer by Deborah Wiles is set in the South and deals with segregation during the Civil Rights Movement. Title, author, conflict. Two boys, one black and one white, learn the importance of standing together to fight against injustice. That's my theme. I could label it theme. I could say the theme is that two boys, etc. And then finally, most importantly, my thesis. This is the answer to the question, how does the author develop the theme? Wiles develops this theme through the symbol of the nickel, John Henry's character change, and the resolution. Notice I tweaked my thesis statement and made it specific to my story. So the symbol of the nickel, John Henry's character change. Those are specific to Freedom Summer that I'm writing about. Okay, so the next thing that we have to do is develop these body paragraphs. I've got my topic sentences answering the question. I've got right here my symbol, my character change, and my resolution. And I've got the evidence that I'm going to use, but now I have to build on that so that it actually makes sense to my reader. And the first thing, and the one that I'm not quite sure why it is so hard for students, and it certainly is the hardest thing for my students, is you have to go back into the text and you have to find what is happening in the story right before your quote. So my quote, I have 2 nickels for ice pops, so we put our clothes on and walked to town. I need to know what they were doing right before that. Oh, near the beginning of the story, the 2 boys are swimming in a creek, and the narrator states that he has the 2 nickels, so they're going to walk to town. So now I can pull that up, and that makes sense now. My reader will know they were out swimming and then they're heading to get ice pops. So the black is nothing difficult, doesn't have to be a complete sentence, but it has to give a context for the quote. It has to make the quote itself make sense. That's the whole point of it. It's introducing the quote. Now, this is where kids get really confused. So I've said that Wiles uses the symbol of the nickel to develop the theme, the symbol of the nickel, and I'm going to add here as power because I want to say what my symbol means. So now I have to make several connections here. I have to most importantly connect this quote about the nickel, the ice pops, back to the idea of power. So who has power in this scenario? Well, the power is actually right now with the narrator. And so I have to make that make sense. Why is the power with the narrator? Because it's the narrator who happens to have the 2 nickels. Not only does he have the 2 nickels, but he also has the ability to walk into the store because, by the way, he is he is white and allowed in the store. So the nickel represents the power that the white narrator has to both walk into the store and to purchase 2 ice pops. This is something that John Henry would not be able to do. So again, I have to address the power. If I've said in my topic sentence that the symbol is the power of the nickel, then I have to talk about the power of the nickel in the green. And I have to also make sure that I'm thinking about this theme about them having power. So then the next thing that I wanted to do, and this is going to make some of you crazy, I have a transition sentence that's a little bit black and a little bit green. And I purposely put this in here because what I don't want you to do is to start thinking in terms of writing in formula. You're not writing, this is not a formula, it's just basic good writing. I introduce a quote, I give the quote, I explain how the quote proves what I'm trying to say with it. So here I'm combining, the green is still my interpretation, the inferences I'm making, but the black is again exactly what is happening in the story. It's not until the humiliation of watching his brother filling in the swimming pool with a blacktop that John Henry struggles with the inequity. So finally he's realizing that, wow, he is not equal, and the town doesn't see him as equal, and the town doesn't want him to be equal. But I did have to include that detail. What makes him feel that way? Well, the filling of the pool. So a reminder that we're not writing in a formula here, and that what you want is the information or the transitions that are going to make sense to the reader. All right. Now I am going to go ahead and put in the background for my next quote. Here we go. And I am wondering how well you all can see this. Maybe I'll make it all large and not worry so much. There. Hopefully you all can see everything okay. So the next quote I have is, I give John Henry one of my nickels. He shakes his head. I got my own. But again, I have to say, how did I get from the swimming pool being filled up to the boys talking again about their nickels? So I have to go back in the story, look at where my quote is, and find out what happened right before it. As the 2 boys are walking home, they pass the store, and John Henry says he wants to pick out his own ice pop. Now, it makes sense when I put in about, it makes sense when I put in, oh, I've got my own and I've got the nickels. They're back in front of the store. Again, the point of the black is to give me a context for what it is that I'm saying in the blue. So again, I have to talk about power because I've said that the symbolism of the nickel is power, that it shows the power. So now John Henry has a nickel. The power is shifting. Now he and the narrator are actually sharing the power. So having his own nickel empowers John Henry to stand up for his right to walk in the front of the front door of the store. Now that the civil rights has desegregated the South, he's no longer willing to be a second-class citizen. So again, up here I talked about the power belonging to the narrator, but down here we've equalized that power because now John Henry has a nickel and John Henry has some of the power too. So looking at my topic sentence, Wiles uses the symbol of the nickel as power. Now I've proven that here the narrator had the power, and now here both boys have the power. So the final thing I have to do, and often one of the hardest I think for the kids, sorry, you teenagers, young people, I'm old clearly, is I have to tie this back up. So I said that Wiles uses the symbol of the nickel to develop the theme. So in my red, I have to come back to the idea of the theme. I have to go full circle. I've proven the power. Now I have to prove that that power has anything to do with the theme. So it is the power of the nickel that equalizes the boys and allows them to, wait for it, yep, here it is, the theme of the story, allows them to fight together against the unjust practice of segregation. So again, my first sentence, I introduced that this is about developing the theme because that answers the question. So my topic sentence says I'm going to use the nickel to develop the theme, and I have to wrap up with that. So it's the power of the nickel that equalizes the boys and allows them to fight together against the unjust practice of segregation. I have both the power and the theme. I have to have the power of the nickel and I have to have the actual theme, or I can at least refer to the theme, but this has to draw full circle. The concluding sentence brings us full circle from the topic sentence. And now the paragraph proves that the symbol of the nickel develops the theme of standing together against injustice. I hope this was helpful. If not, I'm sure Mr. Duffy will let me know, or Mr. Lee will let me know, and I'll make another video for the next paragraph.